All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Mile High on Broad. I'm Ben, and I will be your host. And we're going to be talking some sports today. And I'm going to be joined with my co host, Mike Hare. And, throughout the years, we've definitely had some fun and exciting arguments on sports, specifically the NFL, which is, definitely where I spend a lot more of my focus. But um, Mike here, he's our numbers guy. He knows the stats. And I'm the one who's going to be very opinionated and pretend like I know the numbers until he calls me out on them. But should be a good time, and we'll kind of see how it goes. For this first episode, I think we're just going to kind of jump in and run through um, the first week of the playoffs here. We got some games coming up this weekend. So we're going to just kind of take each game. We're going to talk through each one of them, kind of see where we both stand as who's going to take these games down and kind of go from there. So let's go ahead and get things started. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing fantastic, Ben. Thank you. Yeah, really looking forward to this weekend coming up. I think we're gonna have some really good games coming up, and then it's playoff time, so that's always fun. Really looking forward to how this is all going to shake out because I know every year everyone thinks that everything's going to be X, Y, and Z, and this team's going to wreck that team, and that's just not how it works. It's playoff time, so I think we're gonna get a couple of upsets this year, and it's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. I was looking over the games before we jumped on today, and it was funny. I was like, I think I'm pretty easily set without a lot of thought on who's going to win each of these games. And I was like, I know I'm going to get upset on a couple of them, and those of you out there are going to learn real quick who our teams are. But Mike, obviously excited. Your team's not playing today because they have the number one seed. Um, I luckily don't have a team playing, so I could just get to sit back and enjoy some good football for the next couple of weeks. So,
Yeah, and for those of
um,
you guys that don't know us super well, I'm an Eagles fan, and so despite him having the Eagles banner up in the background, ironically enough, I'm actually the Eagles fan, and Ben here is our resident Broncos fan. So we'll see if maybe he doesn't need to pick a new team in the next year or two if he keeps getting stuck down with this Russell Wilson contract. But all jokes aside, Ben is a hard diehard loyal fan of the Broncos. So yeah,
let's ride.
I'll try to keep my biases out of this.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump in here. So Saturday, first game kicking off, I believe at 4:25 is kickoff for that game. We have the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers, and this is a 9.5 point spread in favor of the San Francisco 49ers. Some quick background: Seahawks 9-8, sneaking in on that seventh seed, taking on San Francisco 13-4. Kind of started the year off a little sluggish, but definitely have come on strong. I think they won 10 straight down the
Yep.
stretch. So definitely have a lot of momentum and juice coming in. What are you thinking for this game, Mike?
Yeah, so I think I'm definitely on the side of Vegas here with San Fran being the heavy favorite here. I think that despite Seattle's they had a hot start to the season, right? Everybody through the first 6 or 8 weeks of the season, everyone was like, "Wow, look at Seattle." It looks like they may have made a great decision in letting Russ go. Look at how well they're doing. This number, the offensive numbers look very similar to with and without him, and Geno Smith was in talks for that MVP conversation, hanging around that fifth, sixth spot or whatever. But in general, they were kind of America's sweetheart, if you will. But despite that, I think that this game has a chance at being one of the two biggest biggest blowouts this weekend. I think. Ever since Brock Purdy's taken over, he's really helped San Fran, just take this offense to new heights this season. It seems like. It seemed like going down the field 20 yards or further on outside of the numbers really helped open up the passing game with Brock Purdy, which was something we hadn't seen through with Jimmy G, and it's also not something we really saw with Trey Lance because he only got to play very minimal starts this season. So I think with Brock Purdy being at the helm, looking as comfortable as he is, it's a home game. Kyle Shanahan's offense seems very independent of needing a quarterback. And while Pete Carroll has been great, and I think he's a future Hall of Fame head coach, I just think that this is going to be an outmatch for them. I think Seattle's going to end up losing this one 14-31.
Not bad. So it's funny you mentioned great at home. So San Francisco 8-1 at home this year, and yeah, I mean Brock Purdy obviously darling. He's up for Rookie of the Year. He might actually won Rookie of the Year. I can't remember. I know they just handed all those awards out, but yeah, I mean he's definitely turned this team on. And I think another like really kind of underrated almost piece of this offense that changed halfway through is when they traded for Christian McCaffrey. And, he's out here lighting it up to the tune of, 100 plus, all purpose yards and a touchdown on average the last 6 games. But what I love even more is that as deadly as Christian McCaffrey is, the biggest thing has been, oh, he's an injury and you can't give him that workload. Well, guess what? They're not giving him that workload. This guy's getting his 15 to 20 touches a game. They're making them count, but then they're sprinkling in some Elijah Mitchell or whoever else just happens to be healthy because that guy cannot stay
Samuel make him
healthy.
into the backfield every once in a while, right?
But you watch these guys and they're letting him get that rest, so he's always on top of everything. And this team just has so many weapons on offense that, I mean, it's just insane. So you top in one of the best offensive lines in football, weapons that, I can't even name all of them, and a quarterback who's just playing like he's got nothing to lose, which, let's be honest, Mr. Relevant doesn't have anything to lose. And we're not even talking about the fact that San Francisco has the number one defense in every category going into this game. And I looked at Seattle, and they're average at best. In every statistical category, they're sitting 16th, 18th, 14th. They're good, but they kind of fell off at the, and I think that they kind of really exposed themselves to who they really are, which is an average at best football team that honestly, minus Aaron Rodgers deciding to just go to sleep last week, probably shouldn't even be in the playoffs. So I'm with you. I think they get trounced in this game really bad. I don't even think that it's going to be close. Vegas has it 16 to 26. I think it's going to be worse than that. I'm with you. I'm thinking something closer to 10 to 31 to finish this game off. So I think we're in unison there with San Francisco taking this down. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the second game on Saturday. I was kind of excited looking over this over because I think we're going to have some friendly discussions with this game. But we have the LA Chargers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chargers coming in at 2.5-point favorites. 10-7 on the season. Jacksonville 9-8, obviously sneaking out that division, making them the home team. And here's the other big caveat: Mike Williams officially out for the LA Chargers. We'll see how that comes back to bite them. Obviously, the last game of the season, Chargers were playing for nothing. Played all of their starters, most of them well into the fourth quarter. Keenan Allen still on the field with 3 minutes left in the game against a Broncos team that, again, had nothing to play for. Losing Mike Williams, definitely not something you want coming into a playoff game like this. So let's start with you. What are you looking at this game, Mike?
Yeah, so actually, funny enough that, I think you think that there's going to be some civil discourse going on here. For those of you at home that, don't really know, Ben and I have had some civil discourse over Trevor Lawrence and versus Justin Fields and things like that. But look, man, Trevor Lawrence has really turned things on the second half of the season. I don't think there's going to be as much civil discourse as you may think. This is going to be the battle of the hair. We have two guys with, luscious manes going at it against each other this week. They've both really helped turn around their mediocre franchises over the last couple of years into playoff teams this year. And they're both really young. They're both under 25. I think both of these teams are going to be back, in the playoffs, consistently for the next, 3, 5, 7 years, something like that. But yeah, like you said, with Mike Will going out again, Brandon Staley, I think that boneheaded decision to play them may end up costing them. And if that one doesn't cost them, I think there's a chance that mid-game he may end up costing them. He's had some weird decisions before in the past. He seems to want to be a very analytics type of guy and going for it on, fourth down very aggressively, or, just making weird timeouts. Last year against the Raiders to get them out of the playoffs, it was very odd. And so, with his clock management, his analytics and things like that, I think that there's a chance that, he may end up costing them this game. Also fun fact, Dougie P, shout out Dougie P, miss you in Philly. You were a living legend for us. He's never lost a first round playoff game. Every single year that he's made the playoffs with the Eagles, he won the Super Bowl that first year. And the second year, we ended up winning against the Chicago Bears with the double doink. And so I think coaching is really going to end up coming down to being the decision in this one. So I think with that all being said, final score, LA 20. I got Jacksonville 28. And so, yeah, I think Jacksonville will be moving on.
I'm going to have to agree with you on this. Looking at this game, and I really thought we'd have some back and forth on who's going to take this down. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, obviously, I feel very strongly about his future potential in this league. And I was looking at some of his numbers. So you look at last year, 59% completion, 3,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, 17 picks.
Very mediocre.
What is this? This is not the generational talent we drafted. You look at this year, 66% completion, 4,100 yards, 25 touchdowns, and only 8 picks. But more so, I think he came out hot to kind of start the year. He had that masterful game against the Chargers in week 3 or 4, where he just absolutely dismantled them. Went into a little bit of slump, but really at the end of the season has really came back on to really show that he has the potential to get this game done. And I was looking at these teams, and they're both very even along the board. When you look at a lot of it, Jacksonville 5-4 at home, the Chargers 5-4 on the road. But yeah, I think Jacksonville is going to be able to pull it out. I agree, coaching can definitely come down to it. Dougie P's done a great job, really, just revitalizing this Jaguars team that went out and spent a bunch of money on a bunch of free agents that a bunch of people looked at and said, "What are you doing? Paying Christian Kirk this kind of money and resetting the wide receiver market." I'm one of them. I still think he's paid more than he is. Not because I don't think that, he's a good enough wide receiver, and he's proved he's definitely got some talent, but man, you completely reset the market for everybody else for a guy that was above average, in my opinion. But they've really come together well as a team. Travis Etienne's out here running the ball really well for being the size that he is. And I think that they just are coming into this game with a ton of confidence. And I think the Chargers, the Chargers are going to Charger. They somehow they're going to trip themselves up. On paper, this team is loaded, even without Mike Williams. But I feel like the Jaguars have all the momentum coming to this game. And I'm going to put it out there. I think if they lose this game, I think that he could get fired. And I think Stanley could lose his job as the Chargers head coach, because he can't keep coming in here and losing these games with these rosters he should lose. But I'm with you. I think Jacksonville wins this game. I think it'll be closer than people think. But I think Jacksonville can easily take it down 17-24, 17-27, something like that. That'll kind of wrap up our Saturday games. Sunday, I don't know how much time we're going to spend on this game. I think it's going to be a quick one, but first game on Sunday, we have the Dolphins at the Bills. The Bills, a 13.5 point favorite at home. They are coming into the season 13-3. They're 7-1 at home, playing a Dolphins team at 9-8, 3-6 on the road. Definitely, looked like they had some juice starting the season with Tua, all these concussions, and now they've just kind of bounced around. And even with the weapons they have in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they just don't seem to be putting up the aggressive kind of points that you think they'd be able to. And announced earlier this week that 6th-round pick Skyler, I don't even know his last name, probably won't be on a team next year, so I didn't spend a lot of time looking it up, is going to be starting this game against the Bills' number 2 points allowed defense and scoring defense in the NFL. So behind only the Niners, this team is going to take on a 6th-round rookie who started 3 games this year. And I get it, try and check down the hill as much as you can, but even as much as I think the Bills have been up and down, and Josh Allen, leading the league in red zone picks, that's not going to matter. They are going to absolutely destroy the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think I'm largely in agreement with you there, Ben. With Skylar Thompson playing, he's just not that great. We saw a lot of him actually in the preseason, and so he looked great. And I remember, when Mike McDaniel was asked about him preseason, coming into, like the final cuts, they were asking him, they're like, hey, Skylar Thompson has basically led all quarterbacks, in the preseason, for his passer rating, QBR, stuff like that. And, so has he done enough to, earn a job here? And basically Mike McDaniel's response was, yeah, how could he have not? He's been playing great. And that's kind of been it. Since then, he's had plenty of chances to start in the NFL. I think he's played 2 or 3 games already, maybe 4, something like that. Like you said, with all the Tua injuries, then it seems like every time Tua gets hurt and Teddy Bridgewater comes in to start, Teddy Bridgewater gets hurt. So
he don't even make it through a game, I don't think. I think he started 2 games. I don't think he's made it out of either one. I feel bad for Teddy.
He hasn't either. So yeah. So I think we've seen enough of Skylar Thompson this regular season to know that this isn't going to be very close. It's also, of worthy note to note that it's going to be a cold weather game. It's going to be in Buffalo. That track speed that Tua and not Tua, that Waddle and Hill both have may end up being negated. It's on a grass field. Those are typically also known for being slower. So yeah, I'm kind of with you in the end. I think Buffalo's going to end up running away with this one. This is another one that I think could be, end up being the biggest blowout of the wild card weekend. I have Miami 17, Buffalo 34.
I definitely think this will top the Seattle San Francisco game. I at least have a little bit more faith in Seattle to try and fight. It is a division game too. This is as well, but I just think that Miami has too many issues. And hey, look, Buffalo's out here to prove something. Especially after the last couple of years when they were heavy favorites coming in. And look, with the Damar Hamlin news, in his recovery, look, he went home. And he's back in the Bills facility this week. He'll probably be at that game, and I promise you, this team is going to go out there and play. And
for
feel
those
bad
of
for the Dolphins.
you might not know, the Bills are the Bills Mafia. They are some of the most passionate fans out there. That stadium is going to be roaring if Hamlin's on the sideline this weekend.
So after that quick blowout game, let's go ahead and talk about the Giants and the Vikings. So Giants taking on the Vikings. Vikings only 3-point favorites, although they were 13-4 in the season. Giants 9-7-1, 4-4 on the road. Vikings 8-1 at home, but they are 10-0 in one-score games this year. And I don't know. I don't trust the Vikings as much as I think a lot of people do. So, Mike, what are you thinking about this game?
So yeah, it's actually funny that you're saying that. I think that a lot of people are really down on the Vikings right now. I think a lot of people are saying, that they're looking at their plus minus differential and saying that, well, because they ended up being minus in their plus minus differential for a team that won 13 games this year. Everyone's saying, well, they're kind of fraudulent, and they may have peaked a little bit early, right? They played a fantastic game against Buffalo midway through the season. Justin Jefferson had arguably the greatest catch of the season, one of the best catches I personally have ever seen. And they ended up squeaking out a win there in overtime. And a lot of people think that they may have peaked there. They were kind of fraudulent, but look, man, they're undefeated this year in one-score games. I don't think the Vikings have the firepower. Not the Vikings, sorry. I don't think the Giants have the firepower to put the Vikings away. They've proven this year that anytime it comes down to a one-score game, Minnesota finds a way to pull it out. They've done it, over and over this year. I think Dable, who deserves probably coach of the year, if not coach of the year, he's definitely in consideration for it. I think he's going to have his guys ready to go. But I don't see the talent, on the offensive side of the ball outside of maybe a Saquon Barkley to really get things done. But that may play into Minnesota's defense's, favor. The Vikings pass defense has been horrendous this year. They've given up several 300 and 400 yard games. We all saw how mediocre Mac Jones was this year. Mac Jones put up career highs against Minnesota's defense this year in passing, but I don't think the Giants want to pass the ball. And so, like I said, I think that's going to play into the Vikings' favor. It's going to make it come down to a one possession game. And I have Minnesota winning 24-21 over New York.
Yeah, so I looked at the Vikings, and man, you want to talk about a defense that can't hold it together. They are 28th in points allowed, 31 in yards allowed. I look at the Giants, they're number 4 in rushing, and they're very pedestrian and everything else. And that's because Saquon Barkley, he is a great running back. And DeBall, he's coach of the year. I don't think there's any debate to it. If they give it to anyone else, shame on you, NFL.
You don't think Dougie P deserves consideration for it?
I think there's a couple people that deserve consideration. I just don't think with what this guy has done with the roster he has, because that's what it comes down to. I don't think the Vikings are going to go far in the playoffs. It shows that they're only a 3-point favorite against a reeling Giants team at home. But hey, good news. It's not prime time, so we know that Kirk will actually play some good games. But I think at the end of this, it comes down to what you said. Like the Giants, they just don't have it. They don't have the weapons and the tools to compete. I mean, honestly, with probably most of the teams in the NFL. So I'm impressed they're even in the playoffs. DeBall said, like, here, my coaching strategy this year is how do I get the ball to 26 as many times as I can? Because that's my offense. And, they're going to give the ball to Saquon a lot, and they're going to run the ball. I don't think this is going to be a high score game. The over under here is 48. I think the under is definitely the way to go because that's what the Giants are going to do. They're going to run the ball. They're going to burn some clock, and they're going to hope that Saquon can bust one or two out of there. And the Vikings are probably going to let him because they can't stop anybody. But I mean, at the end of the day, this Giants team is made up of a bunch of Nobody's. I mean, you look at their wide receiving core, and these guys were on their couch 2 months ago. They were on practice squads around the league at the start of the season. The only one on this roster that was actually on the roster at the start of the year that's playing is Kenny Galladay, who only caught a touchdown last week because everyone else was rested for this week. That's how bad he's played. So he probably won't even see the field.
Probably
Both
not.
of their corners were cut at the start of the season from other teams. Their safety, was on a practice squad, and they have wide receivers that were working at Walmart 3 weeks ago. So this team, they're just not there. Daniel Jones, people say he's going to get a new contract. They're saying the Giants are going to give it to him. I still don't know.
I hope they do. As an Eagles fan, I hope they do. He's not that good.
And I would hope you would want that too, because he's just, I mean, again, he's played better, which is a credit to the ball. But you look at this guy, and he's clearly not it. And with some of these quarterbacks that are going to be hitting the market this offseason, and we'll get into that more. But just looking at this game, this Giants roster just doesn't have what it takes to compete at this level, and they're going to lose this game. And I think it'll probably be not by much, probably 7 points, and I'm putting it somewhere 10-17, and this game's going to be over. Moving on, we got the Ravens at the Bengals. Ravens 10-7 on the year. I feel like it's a very quiet 10-7 season for the Ravens. Bengals, meanwhile, 12-4, obviously not playing a full 17-game season with that Bills game that they missed. But the Bengals 8.5-point favorites going into this. We're going to talk about the game, but I also had another thing I want to touch on. So with the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, once again, not playing.
Yep.
And today, two very conflicting reports coming out. One, that he is healthy enough to play and that his sitting out is completely contract related. And another report that it is not contract related and he actually is still hurt. I'm not going to get into that too much. We're going to talk about off-season stuff. We're going to talk about contracts, all this kind of stuff, once we get through these playoffs. But right now our focus is on what's going to be happening this weekend. So looking at the Ravens, again, 10-7, Bengals 12-4. I got the Bengals in this one. I think they're going to come out, and again, they're just going to trash the Ravens. They played them recently. They beat them. The Ravens are going to run the ball. That's what they do, but it's not going to be enough to stop Joe Burrow in this passing game and what they're going to be able to do on the offensive side of the ball. What do you think, Mike?
So I think I'm kind of with you on your end point, but I think I'm different on how we're getting there. For me, I actually think that this is going to be a very close game. I think that this has potential to be a big upset. I think if, like you said, Lamar was playing, look, then I may end up picking Baltimore, but with Lamar not there, they've just looked really bad without him. I don't know if they've won a game this year without him. I think that's why it's been such a quiet, 10-win season this year for them. They started off super hot. They were something like 9-3, 9-4 before Lamar got hurt. And then when he went down, just they couldn't find a way to win multiple games. I think they won one game this year without Lamar. And so that's kind of why it was, everything was all quiet. If Lamar was healthy, this game may have still been played, but it may have been, Baltimore that was hosting this game instead of Cincinnati. But at the end of the day, I think the Ravens, they've had Joe Burrow's number this year in terms of, style. In both of his games, Burrow threw for like 214 and like 217 yards or something like that. I think he averaged somewhere around, 216-yard passing, 2 total touchdowns, 1 interception. And they won the first game where the Bengals only put up 17 points. So I think Baltimore can get to over 17. So I think they have the potential to win it. So I think it's gonna be very close. But I think in the end, Joe Burrow, Joe Cool, Joe Burr, insert any of his million different nicknames. I think they're gonna end up walking away with this one, 23-20. Like I said, it's gonna be a very very slugfest game. It's a divisional game, and so those are always harder to get a feel for. But yeah, like I said, I think Joe Burrow is going to walk away with this one in a very close game.
So you mentioned it. The Burrow has not been able to do much, but the Ravens out here, they have allowed the third most passing yards in the NFL. Some of those numbers are skewed before the trade for Roquan Smith and after trading for Roquan Smith. This defense, number 2 in almost every category. So he's made a huge impact for this team, rewarded with the big contract. So definitely make a difference. But I'm looking at last week, man. Bengals Ravens played last week. This is a rematch from last week. The Bengals 27-16 victory. They were up 24-7 going into the half. And the Bengals averaging 26 points a game. The Ravens do not have Lamar Jackson. And he's just not the same quarterback. Huntley just can't move the ball like Lamar can. And he's about as good a passer as Lamar is. So they don't have the weapons in the passing game to compete with what Joe Burrow is able to do. And the fact that the Bengals can go out here and drop 27 points when he's putting up 215 yards should tell you something. If this team gets hot, which they've continued to do as years go on, I agree. It's a division game. Who knows what's going to happen? But I just don't know. I don't see the Ravens coming off a last week. This team having to see them again, and the Bengals coming out here saying, "Hey, we got to prove a point. We should have had a chance for the number 1 seed. We didn't get it, and they're going to make some teams pay." So I do have the Bengals winning this game. So far, we've been in unison along the way. Let's see how it goes with this last game. Dallas at Tampa Bay. Dallas 12-5 on the season. Some huge numbers on offense and defense. Number 5 in points per game, number 5 in points allowed a game, number 2 in overall defense and turnover differential, plus 10 on the season. And then we look at Tampa Bay, 8-9, barely squeaking into this playoffs with Tom Brady. Definitely a very Jekyll and Hyde season. They struggled most of the year. They had a couple games toward the end of the season where they looked alive. They had a couple where it looked like they were the team from earlier in the year. Dallas is only a 2.5 point favorite going into Tampa Bay. And I looked at them, and Tampa's going to have to figure it out, and Tom Brady's going to have to figure it out. They are 32nd in rush, averaging less than 75 yards a game right now because Lenny's fat and he can't run the ball anymore. But they're number 2 in pass, and it's going to come down to Tom Brady and whether or not he can figure out a way to dissect this top bitch Dallas defense.
Yeah. So I have 2 words that'll sum up the reason of the why this game's going to go the way it is, and that is Tom Brady. I don't like him. I don't have to like him, but I have to recognize that he's the greatest of all time. And man, anytime that these games have been close, going into the last 2 minutes of the game, Tom Brady has found a way to turn it back. Right? We've seen over and over again this year that the Tampa Bay offense couldn't get anything going. And then, they were down by less than one possession going into the final 2 minutes. And then Tom Brady suddenly rewinds the, clock and makes him look like he's 28 again, goes down for the game-winning touchdown, right? He's done that 2 or 3 times or 4 times this year. On top of that, I don't know, Dak has had a turnover issue lately, right? I know Jerry's come out this week and said, oh, it's not in his DNA to turn the ball over. Well, that's what Jerry, the last 6 weeks, he's thrown at least 1 INT every single week for the last 6 weeks. Like you said earlier, this defense is elite. They're a top 5 defense in the league. I think they're going to get after him. I think they're going to force a turnover or 2 from Dak, and I think the Bucs offense, even though they may struggle, I think they're going to find a way to walk it down at the end with the final score of 23 Dallas, 26 Tampa.
Pretty close. I think this is a really interesting matchup because, Brady just figures out a way. And I don't know if it's they want him to win because, man, he gets some calls sometimes that make you go, hey, they just want Tom to keep winning. But he is. I mean, the guy has been there. He's done it. He knows what to expect. He knows what to do. He's 7-0 against Dallas in his career. He's never lost to them. And I don't think he plans to start now. And I'm with you. I have no faith in Dak. I think he's an average at best quarterback. I think all his hype is starting to show that he's not as special as people thought he was. And I think they're going to try and put it up. But I think the matchup I'm most excited for isn't Dak on the one side of the ball, but I'm really excited to see how Micah Parsons in this defense can get after a Tom Brady that cannot move around in the pocket. If Tom Brady can get some protection with this beat-up offensive line, and if he can find a rhythm, hit some of these quick passes to his wide receiving core, I think Tampa can easily control this game. I think it'll be close. I also have Tampa winning this game. So look at that. 6 for 6. We're in unison here, putting this down. I have this looking next week. We're going to have Chiefs, Jags. We're going to have the Bills and the Bengals rematch of the DeMar Hamlin game, which I think is going to be very emotional for everybody. But honestly, I don't think I'd want it any other way than having those 2 teams play for that next shot. Then we're going to come on the other side. We got Vikings, 49ers. We'll talk about these games next week, but good luck, Vikings. and we got the Eagles and the Bucks, assuming that Tom Brady pulls it out against the Cowboys. And it's gonna be a good week. I'm excited for some football. For all you guys out there, crack a beer, get some wings. Let's enjoy some games, and we'll talk to you guys next week.